if you back up a little bit in the Leviticus context, in chapter 19, verse 1, I think this also tells us something. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the entire assembly of Israel and say to them, 'Be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy.'" Did you hear that? Be holy because I, the Lord your God, am holy. When God says I am holy, it says so many things, but one of the things it's saying is I am different. I am set apart. I am sanctified. I am completely, absolutely pure, and you'll find nothing else like me. I am above any other God that you might bow down to or imagine. I am just different. And he has just told them, because I am holy, you, my people, must be holy. And that is really, in a simple way of saying, God is saying, be different. If you're going to be my people, if you're going to wear my name, if you're going to walk according to my statutes, be different. It's a recurring theme all through the Old Testament. It even comes into the New Testament. My people are supposed to be different, and there is no way in which this shows up more than in the way that we treat other people. And you know, it's one thing, the way we treat other church people. I mean, we don't always do that great, do we? Right? But usually, you know, if we know they're a church person, we're going to treat them. We're going to treat them really well, and we're going to, maybe it's just impression management. I hope not, but we're going to treat them in a certain way. But what about the poor people in our community who aren't a part of this church? What about people who are really in a down and tough part of their lives right now? The wheels have fallen off, and often that is through no fault of their own. I know sometimes it is, but often it's not. What about people who are just maybe traveling through? Maybe they're living in Amarillo for a short time. Do we care about those people? In Matthew 12, where we started today, Kellerman read this story to us about Jesus and his guys. They're gleaning. They don't have jobs, right? They're walking through the fields because they're hungry, and they're picking up what has been left behind and not harvested. And they're rubbing the heads of the grain, and then they're eating them. It's like the original Raisin Bran lunch. Pharisees, always close by. Pharisees were one of the religious leading sects. The Sadducees, the scribes, you hear about all of those. These are all people who are kind of the religious experts of the time. They know the law. They understand everything about the law, and they claim that they are living in every possible way by every little detail of the law, and what's more is they want you to as well. They want to put that on your back as well as their own. They accuse Jesus and his guys of committing high crimes against Sabbath laws. Sabbath laws are quite interesting. You remember the 10 Commandments, one of the top 10. Honor the Sabbath, remember the Sabbath, and keep it holy. Now, basically, that was God saying, spend a day of the 7 days of the week worshiping, and spend the day resting from your normal labor. And if you do that, guess what? You're going to be different. You're not going to be like everyone else. And that was pretty much what God had in mind to help us understand who he was, and that rest was a good part of rhythm, and he was worthy of worship. But they took the simple stated Sabbath law and they expanded that one of 10 into one area of Jewish law that had 39 major sections. It had in the Talmud, the Jewish book of tradition and law, 24 chapters, 165 pages about Sabbath laws. And I tell you, it's like the tax code, just completely nuts. And it was nothing anybody could really hardly do. Most of them were ridiculous. They're inane. But there were laws there about knot tying. There were certain knots you could tie on the Sabbath, and certain knots you couldn't tie on the Sabbath. If you have to go over the loop, it's too much work, but you can come under. Ladies, you'll like this one. On the Sabbath, you couldn't go to the well and use a rope to lower a bucket to get water, but you could use your girdle. And if that means nothing to you, ask your grandmother, okay? In the Talmud, you could not eat an egg that a chicken laid on the Sabbath because the chicken had to work to do it, okay? Clothing. There were all kinds of clothing rules. You could change clothing on the Sabbath, but if it was a piece of clothing that was to be worn on the front, you had to bring it up over the back somehow and slide it into position as opposed to stepping into something because that required too much work. Bathing was allowed on the Sabbath, hence the prerequisite Saturday night bath. Aren't you glad that that's in the Bible somewhere? You could bathe, but you could not pick up your towel after you dry it off. Some of you guys have been living by that Sabbath law forever and ever, amen. That was just a very few out of an incredibly long list of really unbelievable laws. The Pharisees, these legal experts, they give Jesus so much grief. They are so meticulous, so concerned about the keeping of every one of these little pieces of the law, yet they completely miss the point of the Sabbath, which is acknowledging that God is God and I am not. That's the point. That He is different and holy, and that we are called to be a different people and a holy people as well. And Jesus is going to show them in this context and many other times, He's going to show them a greater and better law. He is going to tell them that helping the poor and finding healing and sustenance for them and others was far more important of an issue than not breaking a sweat on the seventh day of the week. Jesus says it is totally lawful to do good on the Sabbath. And if I'd been there in His shoes, I would have said, well, duh, of course it is. There's so many ways that we can be different. But one of the ways that's going to say more to this world than probably anything else is that we can be different in that we consider the needs of others instead of merely our own.